The Crusades were a series of religious wars sanctioned by the Latin Church in the medieval period. The most commonly known crusades were the campaigns in the eastern Mediterranean aimed at recovering the Holy Land from Muslim rule. These began in 1095 and continued in various forms until the 13th century. The Crusades were driven by a complex interplay of religious zeal and worldly ambitions. One of the primary motivations was a deep sense of religious piety. Many Christians in Western Europe were profoundly moved by the plight of their brethren in the East, who faced increasing pressure from the expanding Seljuk Turk Empire. The call to liberate Jerusalem, the holiest city in Christendom, resonated powerfully with people from all walks of life. For many, participating in a crusade was seen as a pilgrimage, an act of penance, and a way to secure their salvation. However, religious fervor was not the sole driving force. The Crusades also presented opportunities for economic and social advancement. Younger sons of noble families who stood to inherit little under the laws of primogeniture saw the Crusades as a chance to win land, wealth, and glory. Merchants, too, were drawn by the prospect of new trade routes and markets in the East. The Crusades, therefore, were a product of both spiritual yearning and material desire. The initial spark for the Crusades came in 1095 when the Byzantine Emperor Alexios I Komnenos, facing the advance of the Seljuk Turks, appealed to Pope Urban II for military aid. Urban seized upon this request and at the Council of Clermont in November 1095 delivered a rousing speech that ignited the crusading spirit. He urged Christian knights to take up arms and liberate the Holy Land, promising them remission of sins and eternal rewards. Urban's call to arms resonated far and wide, setting in motion a mass movement that would profoundly shape the course of history. The First Crusade, from 1096 to 1099, despite its chaotic beginnings and lack of central leadership, proved remarkably successful. Fueled by religious zeal and bolstered by a series of unexpected victories, the Crusaders captured Jerusalem in July 1099. The conquest of Jerusalem was a defining moment in the history of the Crusades, marking the high point of Christian military success. Following this victory, the Crusaders established several Crusader states in the Levant, including the Kingdom of Jerusalem, the County of Tripoli, and the County of Edessa. However, the success of the First Crusade proved difficult to replicate. The Second Crusade, from 1147 to 1149, launched in response to the fall of the County of Edessa, ended in utter failure. Despite being led by powerful monarchs, Louis VII of France and Conrad III of Germany, the Crusader armies were weakened by internal divisions and suffered a series of defeats at the hands of the Seljuk Turks. The Third Crusade, from 1189 to 1192, prompted by the fall of Jerusalem to Saladin in 1187, achieved a more mixed result. The Third Crusade, led by iconic figures like Richard the Lionheart of England, Philip II of France, and Frederick VII Barbarossa of Germany, managed to recapture the important port city of Acre. However, Richard was unable to retake Jerusalem, eventually concluding a truce with Saladin that allowed unarmed Christian pilgrims access to the Holy City. The Fourth Crusade, from 1201 to 1204, perhaps the most infamous of all the Crusades, deviated disastrously from its intended goal of retaking Jerusalem. Instead of reaching the Holy Land, the Crusaders, manipulated by Venetian interests and internal disputes, ended up sacking Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire, in 1204. The sack of Constantinople was a tragedy for Christendom, exacerbating the already strained relations between the Catholic West and the Orthodox East. It also weakened the Byzantine Empire, making it more vulnerable to later conquest by the Ottoman Turks. The later Crusades, though numerous, were ultimately unable to recapture Jerusalem or re-establish a lasting Christian presence in the Holy Land. The last major Crusader stronghold, Acre, fell to the Mamluks in 1291, marking the end of the Crusader states. Myths and misconceptions, reframing the narrative of the Crusades. The enduring legacy, the Crusades and the shaping of East and West.